Yeah, I'm joined right now by one of Australia's best high flyers, Robbie Eagles. Robbie, thank you very much for joining us here on Wrestle Radio Australia.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Now, first question, mate. Have you always loved wrestling, or was it something sort of your brother got you into?
I always loved it as a kid myself. Watched it since I was very young. But having an older brother in the business definitely helped me kind of start getting my foot in the door when I wanted to make it something that I wanted to do.
So, aside from your brother, who were your influences growing up? Like watching, were there certain guys you watch and you go, "This is who I want to pattern myself after," or?
Yeah, there were a few. Initially the first person that really caught my eye was Sting, and this was probably during the era in WCW where the Wolfpack were around.
The Red Sting?
Yeah, that was the first thing that I really saw that was wrestling related, and I thought, oh, this guy looks really cool. He kind of looks like a bad guy, but he's like a hero and stuff at the same time. So I thought that was actually really cool.
And what's it like sort of following your brother's footsteps, especially with the different styles the two of you really have?
It's always a big thing in the back of my mind because Ryan's accomplished so much in Australia and overseas as well. So anytime I'm doing something, I'm really always following in his footsteps. He's been to the States numerous times, and all those times were before my 2-week venue. When I was there, my 2-week tenure in 2011. So again, following in his footsteps. And then Japan, he actually did a small tour of Japan in 2008. So I managed to do a 3-month tour in 2012, but he already did it. So, I mean...
Yeah, but you went longer. Surely you got to keep saying that to him.
Yeah. But, when it comes down to accomplishments and stuff like that, I'm always striving to gain what he's already had. He's got so much knowledge, but our styles really are different, but that's what makes us as a tag team and us as opponents really, really interesting to watch, because you're always going to get something different.
And you of course learned at the PWA Academy, and now you're one of the head trainers there, sort of thing. What's it like? Well, can you tell us a bit about the academy for starters?
Well, the PWA Training Academy, it's moved a couple of times, but it's always been a big group of people that really want to learn. We've very rarely had anyone that doesn't come in with a learning experience as the goal that they want to achieve, and it's always been a good group of people. I came up with the likes of Ash Riot and Jesse McKay, and then we had people from all over Australia coming in all the time, and we still do to this date. So it's a really good place to learn from different people who have different parts of knowledge of professional wrestling.
How regularly do you take people in? Is there like a tryout process, or do you just ring up and they say, come and we'll have a look at you, sort of thing?
It kind of just depends on the people who call through and the people who show up, because we welcome people with open arms at the PWA Training Academy, but wrestling's not for everyone, and they find that out usually within the first session. So we leave that pretty open to the people willing to try, and then we gauge their reaction after going through all the physical strenuous activities that is involved in the training.
Well, that's right. Now, you won the first ever 01 Australia Fighting Spirit comp, and like you said before, I had a 3-month tour of Japan for 01. What was it like, just with the different culture, and especially bridging the language gap in the ring? I mean, how was that? Was it much of a culture shock for you?
It definitely was a culture shock, because the way that the people lived over there was very different to how we live over here in Australia. But fortunately for me, when I was in high school, I actually studied Japanese as a language for a year, so I had a very brief understanding of the basics. So in terms of language, the barrier wasn't really there, and I made sure to brush up on it before I went. But when it came to ring time, it was quite often that it was like a universal language that must be spoken all over the world. A suplex was still a suplex. To some guys maybe that had trained in Mexico, a suplex is what we call an arm drag, but it can get confusing sometimes. But body motion, like if you're going through something, the guys usually use their body movements to explain what they mean, and if you've got a good understanding of wrestling, you kind of can just work it out yourself.
Fair enough. And you also trained and competed in the US for Chikara. Did that sort of thing whet your appetite to get back over to, say, the States, or are you looking to travel elsewhere, like Mexico or Japan again?
Look, I'm always looking to travel pretty much anywhere that wrestling will take me. It's one of the benefits of what we do. You know, not everyone gets the opportunity to say they've seen the world doing something they love, and that's what I can tell people that talk to me about wrestling every day. But being in Chikara in the USA especially, it's definitely made me want to go back more than anything. I did the stint in Japan, and that was great, and I'd love to go back there, but the USA trip, I felt like there was so much more that I could have achieved with more time and more experience and knowledge like I have now. So I definitely want to get back over there.
Yeah, I think your style very much complements sort of the Chikara style, or definitely Mexico style.
Yeah, it's very lucha libre oriented, because at an early part of my career when I was training, Brian and Madison at the time, who was helping train me as well, they both realized, you know, my stature's not really of the highest. I had to use my speed and my agility to my advantage, and that lucha libre style really catches people off guard, because not a lot of people train for it here in Australia, so I can use it to my advantage.
You also had, like, TNA tryouts, I hear.
Yeah, that was a bit of a funny one. There was a few faces and names at that, and it was could have been more of a publicity stunt than anything, but you know, I wasn't working a full-time job at the time, so I thought, what the heck, let's go see what it's about. And I managed to wrestle one of my good friends in Sean O'Shea, and we had a good fun match. So
what was the deal there with it?
I think what happened is, what they said is they were doing a tryout because they were going to do live TNA shows in almost every state, and they wanted to pick one wrestler or referee or manager or what have you for each state. So they held an open tryout with a ring in Martin Place in the city of Sydney, and basically we showed up and none of us really knew what to expect. We thought maybe this is going to be like a tough enough thing where we have to cut a promo in the ring and they just us and that's it. But then we showed up there and they said, okay, who do you want to wrestle? Do you have someone you can wrestle? And we're like, oh. It's going to be, then, you know, it's lucky we showed up in groups and we kind of just paired ourselves up, and lucky enough I got to be with one of the guys I trained with in Sean O'Shea from the Fitness Maniacs, and yeah, we just did what we did pretty much every day at that point.
Awesome. Now, being a cruiserweight type as you are, do you see WWE as a harder mark to maybe break, being that he's notoriously a big man territory sort of thing?
Look, I would say, if you asked me this question maybe 2 years ago, or even, you know, a year ago, I would say definitely. But right now, if you look at the guys who are at the top, especially being that of Daniel Bryan, he's not a small guy by any means, but he's definitely a shorter guy. Now, that's something that I can aspire to. And then you look at, you know, NXT, and you've got people like Adrian Neville, who was the former Park, and Sami Zayn, who isn't, he may be fairly tall, but he's not that broad. There's definitely, I think, space for the guys that do what they do well, and I consider myself to be one of the best in this country, and I'd love to be able to be considered one of the best in the world. And, you know, in order to do that, you've got to get to the top promotion, and let's not argue about it. It's easily the WWE.
That's right, especially now with the WWE network and all the rumors of there might be a whole cruiserweight show happening soon and all this stuff. I mean, it could be the perfect time for you to give that area a crack.
Oh, of course. Well, that's always the goal. Like, I mean, I think my top two picks that I would have to go for is I'd say WWE or New Japan Pro Wrestling, because they're probably the two biggest wrestling companies in the world today.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that annoys me actually is when people call New Japan Pro Wrestling an indie.
Oh yeah, it's definitely far from it. I was lucky enough to do a 0-1 show at Korakuen Hall, and we had an afternoon slot. And straight after we finished, there was a New Japan Pro Wrestling show in the evening. So as we're packing down everything and traveling down this big elevator, there's the New Japan tour bus next to our truck. And man, that thing, if you considered New Japan an indie, it was a pretty good-looking bus, I have to say. It
was fairly independent, is what you're saying?
Far from it, otherwise.
Now, moving sort of back home, and on February 22nd, Pacific Pro Wrestling have their inaugural P1 tournament. Can you tell us about the bit about the tourney, mate?
Look, to be honest, I don't even know that much about it. I was contacted by the matchmakers of Pacific Pro, and they said, look, we're running a tournament, we want you in it. I haven't been that successful in Pacific Pro so far. I've lost 2 out of the 2 matches I've been there for, that against Mitch McCarthy and AJ Istria, who's now their champion. But I asked, who else is in the tournament? And they were pretty good with telling me who was in there. And as soon as they named Istria and being in the tournament, I was like, man, I need to get that win back. So I don't know how it happens, but I'm going to be going gung-ho on that tournament. And, if I can't get to the finals, as long as I get my hands on Istria, I'll be pretty happy.
Yeah, and also I hear it'll be on iPay-per-view as well on Wednesday. So that's got to be great exposure for yourself and the Fed.
Always is, iPay-per-view is such a great technology now if it's done right, and it's great for Australian wrestling in general because we're not very easily accessible to the world at the moment. So the more of our media and our content and our exposure is available worldwide, the better it is for all of us, not just me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also great to see some really good talent sort of starting to make their way up to Queensland and really get that territory sort of up and running strong, because over the last few years it hasn't had the best reputation.
Yeah, that is quite true. I've been there on and off throughout the years. I was there, my first time was in 2009, and then I was on a hiatus until about, I think, 2011 or 2012, I'm not too sure, but it's definitely changed a lot through those years, and right now you've got guys like Jag going up there quite regularly, as he's the title holder at AWA, and that's great, because if he's there and there are people that can learn from him, and I know he holds seminars while he's there, he's a fantastic person to train with, and he's probably one of the best teachers in this country as well. I've had the opportunity to train under him, and he's just great. The knowledge he holds is second to none. Yeah,
I do hear that a lot, actually. Kellyanne English was also very high on his training as well.
Yeah, he's had a hand in training a few of the girls that were part of the PWA Academy, one of them being Casey Cassidy, who's based out of MCW in Melbourne now. And she always appreciated when Jag would be around in Sydney, and he'd take the time out and he'd show her some of the things that maybe I didn't know or I wasn't the best at, because, in wrestling, some people are going to be better than you at some things. No one's going to be the best at everything. And that's why it's so good to broaden your horizons and learn from as many people as possible.
Have you ever thought about maybe heading over to, say, the Lance Storm Academy in Canada? Because I know a lot of guys that have been over there have come back and just said it changed the way I wrestle.
To say that it hasn't been a thought, that would be a lie. I have thought about it. The thing that I see is the Lance Storm Academy would be great, but I think it would have been better and more beneficial for me if I did that maybe when I was first starting out. And the reason that is he would be really good to mold you from scratch. Now, having had experience in wrestling and wrestling for a few years already, I'm not sure how much of the training I could actually take in after being trained a certain way. So that's why going to places like Chikara, overseas to Japan, and then just training all over Australia as well, I can pick up little bits and pieces from the people I train with and adapt that to what I already know.
Actually, Josh Schroeder said that sort of exact same things, because he went over to the Booker T training academy when he was really early in his training, and he said, I wish I'd have went there later, because his training academy is more about ring psychology and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so Booker's would have been really good for Josh had he gone maybe now, last year, would have perfected what he knew, whereas some places will be better for the initial molding, which I think Lance Storm is really good for. But in saying that, I still think Lance Storm is a great wrestler and a great trainer. So who knows, I could go over there and I could pick up everything that I need to step up my game.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of stepping up, balcony jumps. Now, I hear you're not a great fan of heights, yet you jumped off more than one balcony in your time. Why?
Well, I mean, to say I'm not the biggest fan of heights, yeah, that's probably right. Like, if I can avoid them, I do. But, the thing with balconies, I don't know. It's just, when you put mass and force plus velocity against another person that you're trying to beat, it's kind of a good plan, because when you think about it, jumping from a 2-story height onto someone that you're trying to pin down for a 3 count or make submit, if you come down that far and that fast, you're definitely going to hurt them somewhat.
That's the most technical way I've ever heard somebody say I'm crazy.
Well, take it as you will.
Now, one question that when I told people that I'd be interviewing you, one question I got asked to ask you is, what the hell is with the bandanas?
I don't really know. I picked it up from Ryan and Madison when I was first training. You know, I had long hair at the time, so Ryan was really into wearing them around his head, so he wore it around his head, and I was like, oh yeah, he's my brother, so I want to kind of imitate him a little bit. So I'd wear one around my head at training, and I was like, oh yeah, this is a bit flashy, this is a bit cool, it's keeping the hair out of my eyes and everything. And then I don't know, I just thought, you know what, let's go a bit over the top, let's be a bit zany, and let's put one around the neck at the same time. Because I'd seen people wear either a bandana on their head or around their neck, but I'd never seen double bandana.
Ah, you went the double.
Yeah, I was trying to push the envelope at an early age.
Does it ever get in your way at all during a match? Are you ever worried he's going to get caught on something?
Look, I mean, it's a bit of a fashion statement, or a bit of, you know, accessorizing while I'm out there putting my ring gear on and stuff, but it has gotten in the way. You know, there's been times where either it falls down over my eyes and I can't see, or the one around my neck has been my biggest downfall, and some opponents have used it to choke me.
Yeah, I always thought that with IRS. I was like, why the hell do you wear a tie when it was just built for choking?
Yeah, it's a little bit silly when you think about it, but the amount of people that haven't used it, it almost shocks me, because I'm sure people would go straight for it. It's around my neck already. We're heading to sort of the random quickfire questions that I ask everybody. First off, favourite guys you've worked here and abroad? One of my favourite opponents to get in there with is Mark Davis, just because we've trained together several times. We're part of a tag team known as Prestige Worldwide within the group of the Neo Sovereign Revolution, alongside Ryan Eagles. And, you know, being training partners, you're always going to get more out of each other in the ring. And Mark Davis and I, we just go out there and, you know, it's just creative, and that's what I thrive on. Same thing goes for Ryan Eagles. We've never really had a bad match against each other, and again, tag teaming is the same sort of thing. Abroad, I had the opportunity to wrestle Jonathan Gresham from the USA a couple of times while I was in Japan, and at first we didn't really click that much, but then toward the end we wrestled each other so many times that it just became second nature.
Guys you'd love to work?
Okay. Well, someone that I wanted to work with abroad was my trainer in 01, which was Ikuto Hidaka. I was fortunate enough to tag team with him for the entire 10-year of my 3-month tour over there, but I never got the opportunity to actually wrestle him. We did wrestle a little bit at training, but it was never as much as you would put into an actual match on a show or an event. So, I mean, that's probably one of my dream matches there. And someone that I would want to wrestle in Australia. Does it have to be someone that I haven't wrestled before?
Well, kind of, because otherwise it'd be a favourite guy at work, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, very true. That's a hard one. It's kind of hard to pinpoint people that I haven't had the opportunity to work with yet in Australia. I'm trying to think of who's around.
Well, anyone then. Worldwide. We'll go worldwide then for you.
Worldwide? Well, I really want to come up with someone from Australia. I'm just trying to think. You know what? I always thought it would be interesting, if anything, for me to have a match with Benny Coles.
Okay.
Yeah, just for curiosity's sake, because we've never been in the ring together, so it'd be interesting more than anything.
Now you're pretty much one of the few guys that have wrestled everywhere in the country. What's your favourite promotion to work aside from, of course, PWA, your own sort of thing?
There's several. You know, I usually have one place that I love working for in almost every state. You know, when they were running PWA in Canberra and the ACT, great place, you know, familiar faces, people I trained with when I was first starting, so that was great, and I loved every minute being there. MCW in Melbourne, probably one of my top favourite places to wrestle all the time, because everyone there is so welcoming, and the audience there is so cool. Like, sometimes they'll be really ghostly and quiet, but most of the time they're really, really cool and responsive to what we do out there. And then you've got Wrestle Rampage in Adelaide, who used to be 01, and before that they were NWA Pro. PPW in Queensland, and most recently NHPW in Perth was fantastic to wrestle for. But I definitely still want to get over to EPW then.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. People that haven't wrestled in EPW, everyone says, I want to get over and wrestle in EPW.
Yeah, I was supposed to do a show for them last year in August, but unfortunately I suffered an injury to my ankle that pretty much put me out for the count for the entire month, so I unfortunately missed that booking.
Wow. And now, in your opinion, what makes a good promotion?
It really depends. They got to cater to their audience or be able to change based on their audience that turns up, because you could run the same venue every month for 12 months, but the audience that comes through the door may be different. You know, 1 month it may be all over 18s and they're really into, you know, the gruesome side of things, or they're really into the physicality. And then the next month you might get majority kids and families, and they kind of want a bit more of a lighthearted nature to the entertainment we provide. So I think a good promotion really listens to the audience and realizes who walks in the door that night and promotes the show based on that, rather than just doing what they're comfortable with and what they want to do.
Okay, and finally, Aussie guys you can see making that sort of extra step that have yet to try. I mean, we've got Matt Silver or Buddy Murphy in NXT. You've got Ryan Rollins over in AAA. You got Emma, of course, now on actual WWE TV. So anyone that you've seen, TMDK over in Japan, anyone you see in Australia that's currently sort of based in Australia that you could really see making that extra leap over in a foreign country?
There's probably two people that I could name, and both of them are world traveled, but I think neither of them have really gotten that sort of spotlight that you're, I think, alluding to, and that would be Elliot Sexton and Damian Slater, two of my favourite people to work with and two of my favourite people to watch. Yeah,
I agree completely, especially with Slater.
Yeah, Slater's such a technician in the ring, and Sexton's just so entertaining to watch. I mean, it's very hard to keep your eye off either of them, and if anywhere in the country or the world is listening, either of those matches, Robbie Eagles versus Elliot Sexton or Robbie Eagles versus Damian Slater, get it booked, and that will put butts in the seats.
Well, that's why I couldn't...
I'll pay for the butts to be in.
I couldn't understand when Elliot had his WWE tryouts, why the hell they didn't pick him up.
Oh yeah, it seems like they let that one slip through their fingers.
The dude is, 6'7", chiseled out of granite, cuts a great promo, knows his character. I don't know what more they want.
Oh, he's fantastic. I've known Elliot Sexton a lot longer than a lot of people in the business, and he's a good friend of mine outside of everything, and I honestly thought he had it and he would have been there, but you know, that it's their loss and our gain, because it means we get to see him a lot more, and that's absolutely perfect to me.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today, mate. And before you go, just get out all your plugs and where people can follow you.
Alright, well, you can get me on Facebook, look for the official Robbie Eagles athlete page, Twitter, Robbie Eagles NSR, and I'm also on Instagram, Robbie Eagles LSX. And if you want to drop me an email, you totally can. It's robbieeaglespro@gmail.com.
Awesome, man. You will be at the P1 tournament at Lions Richlands, corner Garden Road and Pine Road, Richlands. This is an all-age event with ticket prices being $20 for adults, $10 for kids under 15. Doors open at 6 p.m. and the show will kick off at 7. You can pre-purchase tickets from the venue. Of course, it will also be on iPay-per-view for guys in other states. Wednesday the 26th from 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. It's $10, and it's from PacificProWrestling.com, that their actual website. That's what will be housing the iPay-per-view. And of course, the entrance in that card will be Robbie Eagles, AJ Istra, Joel Bateman, Jesse Daniels, Johnny Lucas, Koi Bambora, Mark Davis, and your brother Ryan Eagles.
Well, it's definitely a stacked tournament, and I look forward to seeing anyone that shows up. But I'll tell you this now as an exclusive for Wrestle Radio. Joel Bateman, I've never wrestled you before. I'm looking forward to this match, but if it means I have to, mate, set yourself up, because I'm going to knock you down with one headshot knockout.
Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Not a problem. Thanks again for having me.